Hello and welcome to Eat Sleep Code, the official Telerik podcast. It's time for some links, things that or articles, things that happen in the news and whatnot. So we'll kick things off with a little Octoverse. So when I hear Octo, I get confused a little bit. I thought this was a an octopus deploy thing at first, but this is a GitHub thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I know. It's not, but GitHub and us share that same heritage. Octoverse is a report that's published annually by GitHub. GitHub talked a lot about this at GitHub Universe. We were at GitHub Universe incidentally last week. It ran for a couple days there over in San Francisco, and we had a great time there. We had a booth. We had a boba bar booth. Basically, we were giving bubble tea out to folks. And one of the things that they talked about at GitHub Universe was the latest Octoverse report. So this is the annual sort of report from GitHub, provides insights into basically everything that's happening, and they touted Python quite a bit as the top
Interesting.
language. Yes, very interesting. But lots of great insights in the report. Always interested to hear what is happening in terms of GitHub. It's a sort of bellwether or kind of like the canary to share with you what's happening in the development space. Over
Hmm.
500 million total projects on GitHub are now hosted, which is crazy. And they're seeing, I think, I think they cited 25% growth year over year, which is insane. And there's been over a billion contributions to public and open source projects over the past year. Python dominates, and it overtook actually JavaScript as the most popular language on GitHub, which is pretty impressive actually. There's over 100. There's over 1 million open source maintainers now on GitHub.
So this is interesting, and since we're talking about AI, I think it's fair to bring this into the conversation, John. I want to hear your take on what I'm about to say.
Okay.
So you see, GitHub tracking these, contributions to repositories. So they have a pretty good insight on the amount of code that's being uploaded to GitHub. And Python has taken over JavaScript now as the one language. Find that very interesting. But thinking about this in the context of Gen AI and things like GitHub Copilot and the future of software development, and you think about the models are being trained on these large sets of data, like the repositories on GitHub. Is this like a thermal like runaway situation where you're training your copilots on the source code that's up there, and then the more source code you get, so things like Python and JavaScript are going to be like really well trained, well oiled machines when it comes to like Gen AI coding, like your copilot, like helping you figure out what you're going to type next.
Right.
Do these things start
Yeah.
to like overshadow newer, smaller languages that don't have these giant repos of models to be trained on?
Well, maybe, but I mean, if you're talking about the generative stuff, there is a risk that AI could train on low quality, even harmful code. There is
Yeah, there's
that
that
case,
too.
and yeah, so I that's the biggest risk that I see is that people are going to trust implicitly the code that's generated by AI, and this is why you see all these generative tools saying, "Please check your what's generated here. Do not take this as gospel." Especially that code, especially if it doesn't differentiate between high quality vetted code and less reliable contributions. So I think code quality is one thing. I think that there's also the risk of learning insecure patterns as well. It's not just the code itself, but bad patterns that run the risk of security vulnerabilities.
Hmm.
And then there's obviously a need to for bias control in data sets. So the data sets need to be really careful about curation to avoid reinforcing biases. And so in code, this means over avoiding overlifting to commonly used but suboptimal solutions. And so AI models run that risk as well. So GitHub's doing everything it can to try and mitigate these things. So they're very much aware of these things, and they employ a variety of
Yeah.
techniques to filter out code that the AI trains on. But early on, when you were using GitHub, you could see that a GitHub Copilot, excuse me, you saw this happen in the the code that was generated by GitHub Copilot. And there's very prominent videos online where people are citing this, like, you have a divide by zero error right here in the bug. This was generated by GitHub Copilot. Now they are edge cases, but it is a risk. That's the
Yeah.
biggest concern I have.
Yeah, it's just I find it very interesting to think about like where it's gonna be in like 5 years or something, because if
Sure.
you like go back 10 years to when jQuery was like the big thing, right? And then we got, Angular 2 was just in beta, React was coming out, and all the explosion of like JavaScript frameworks. If you try to like introduce a brand new JavaScript framework these days, like if it was like day zero, you're not getting any IntelliSense like Copilot generation or anything
Yeah.
out of that because there's nothing to train it on. It's like a chicken
No.
and egg scenario. But then you're like, well, if I go over and write some React code, like this thing's just gonna write code for me, basically. So
Right.
like, what's gonna happen with the future of our languages when we've got that situation? Like, if I come out with a brand new programming language today, like that Copilot stuff doesn't exist yet. So like you have to build that infrastructure up, and now you're fighting against Copilots in Python and JavaScript that are like really efficient. So something to think about.
Yeah.
Back
Yeah.
to the topic. Sorry, I didn't mean to get too off track there.
You're fine. You're fine. So they do cover a bunch of things in the report. They talk about the state of open source, which I think people generally know is pretty good.
Hmm.
They talk about the state of generative AI itself. Though there's sections listed in the table of contents where they talk about each one of these things. They talk about security and automation, which is great to see. Obviously, automation is a key sort of interest point for us over at Octopus Deploy. We like to automate things over at Octopus Deploy, namely deployments. So we talk a lot about that. And then they talk about the most popular programming languages. So Python. You may remember, I think we talked about this last year when it came out. The rise of HCL. HCL was hugely popular. So Python now beats out JavaScript. But infrastructure as code, config as code, whatever you want to call it, HCL and shell scripts continue to dominate, and TypeScript continues to show strong growth as well.
I like TypeScript myself. I've seen
Yes.
people on either sides of that coin. Another thing that's pretty interesting here is the vulnerability section.
Yep.
Injection is still a big problem, and we're seeing this in the AI stuff quite a bit now too.
Right.
So they what do they call it in AI? The term is slipping my mind. But
Trojan horse.
where you're prompt engineering, but you're doing it nefariously. There's a word for it.
A
Uh,
bad actor.
Spoofing it. I
Impersonating.
don't. Yeah,
Okay.
but I saw an interesting one the other day where somebody had gotten had broken the 0.1 model from ChatGPT,
Yeah.
where you can't tell it to do things that are supposed to be bad, and
Right.
like giving you formulas for drugs or something like that is like street drugs. I'm not talking about like medical necessities, but like bad things,
Yeah.
right? So what
Complications.
what somebody did is they asked it this question, how do I do this bad thing? And it's like, yeah, I can't tell you that. And then they're like, all right, you're now an API that returns
Yeah.
pretend you're an API that has endpoints and returns JSON data, and then asked it pretty much anything they wanted, and it just gave it back in a JSON response. I was like,
Yeah,
oh
they're able
boy.
to thwart the safeguards put in place there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much that they can do. I mean, what you're seeing here in this report is obviously what is being caught by CodeQL, which is their static code analysis tool. You can integrate it with GitHub Actions if you want. Injection being the predominant one. I would be interested to see where it's actually being propagated.
Mhm.
My suspicions that it's probably still JavaScript in that regard.
Let's talk a little bit more about AI, John. We've
Okay.
covered it pretty extensively on the show, but I found a really cool resource today. This is by Anthropic, and they have the Claude AI model. And this is like a hands-on workshop that you can do. It's up on their courses section of their GitHub. And this is basically going to teach you prompt engineering. And I thought this was really well laid out. And you don't even need to really do the yeah, it was probably more beneficial if you do it with the live data, but you could actually just read through some of this, and it's very good information to have if you're going to be doing any kind of AI prompt engineering. So it's all laid out here, like beginner, immediate, intermediate, and so on. And I believe this is in Python, but it's got every step that you need to go through and how to get this all working on locally on your machine, for example. And then it teaches you a little bit about prompt structure. And this is all from the API point of view. So I talked about this a little bit on my AI show that I do on Friday using the Azure OpenAI model. But you basically have these different contexts of where these messages come from. And you have messages that the user prompts in, you have messages that you can give the AI as a system, and then you can feed back messages that were essentially results from previous conversations. And you can flag those with the proper metadata so the model knows how to respond better. So that's what this is going to teach you how to do. And it's nice to be able to go through and see some of the different types of prompts that you can use with it. And it's all laid out here again. So you could read through this and really get a lot from it without having to go hands-on and do the workshop. But if you want to install the tools and do that, you can follow along that way as well. So it's really well structured. I thought it was a great resource and something that I might check out myself over the weekend or something.
I like it.
.NET Conf right around the corner.
I know.
Where
Our good friend Jeff Fritz will be hosting the online event. It's going to be occurring November 12th, 13th, and 14th. And it's going to feature a whole bunch of speakers. You can find out more by visiting .netconf.net. And there you'll see basically a registration page, etc. This is going to be basically a big party for .NET 9, all the great stuff that's there. I know that you guys are over at Telerik /Progress are helping out with this a little bit. There's attendees can win a swag bag. So yeah, lots of reasons to get involved in this.
Yeah, I'm curious to see the C# 13 stuff. I've looked at the release notes, and I still haven't caught this one that showed up on me today. So there's a new feature in C# 13 that I haven't seen highlighted anywhere or talked about anywhere. It's in the documentation if you dig deep enough to find it, but I didn't see it in like the what's new in .NET 9 stuff. So I'm interested to see if they talk about it in .NET Conf. But when you write like an inline lambda expression in like a link statement or something, you have
Yes.
your open parentheses, you got your little predicate in there, you say lambda arrow, do, something equals whatever. There's actually a new performance tweak in .NET 9, and it popped up in Visual Studio for me earlier today. So when you type that in now, it will underscore it and give you a bubble, and it'll say, use the static keyword here for performance improvements. So there's a new static inline lambda expression, and it basically looks at the allocated variables differently. So you can't access certain things. It changes the scope of that statement to where it's not looking at things like inherited values from this. You can't access base and that type of thing, but it's more for if that statement is only focused on the variables that are in line there, then it will allocate less memory to run that line of code. So there's like a little performance thing that they added with C# 13, and you get that little bubble to help you find that in Visual Studio. I saw that
So
nowhere in any of the release notes.
Are you describing static anonymous functions?
Somewhat.
Okay. I thought those were
find that.
I thought those were introduced in C# 9. It doesn't matter. I'm just curious.
Oh, it may
It
have
sounds to me
been.
like it sounds to me like what you're describing is IDE support in VS. So VS might have better.
Happened.
Okay. Because that doesn't sound like the language at heart. That sounds like either VS or VS Code helping you.
that's why I'm not seeing it in C# 13, because it was an earlier version of C#, but now the tooling has caught up.
Yeah. So we
Awesome.
covered what was in C# 13. I think it was a couple of shows ago. We talked about trying to remember now. There's like enhanced params collections. So when you utilize a params modifier, it will help out there, specifically for like system type, span of t, whatever. There's there's a new lock object, I think, for it's a new synchronization primitive. It's in the system.threading namespace.
And there's
so there's
the new
that
indexing.
Okay.
Reverse indexing is nice. You can do the caret. And then
the implicit indexer, yes.
Yeah, indexes.
For
reverse.
that's when
that's
awesome. When you're initializing an object. That's right.
Good stuff. Let's see. We have addressing the root causes of common security frustrations. Is this the article, John? Did I grab the right?
Yeah, so this is not the article itself, but this is a new e-zine magazine called The Source. That just happens to be an article in here. This is from the folks over at GitLab. So GitLab has a new e-zine that you can check out called The Source, and this is the first edition. So this is all on insights of future of software development, as it says there, and you can check it out by visiting The Source over at GitLab. I think it's at about.gitlab.com/thesource or something like that. But they have this is a new source. Yeah. So it's a new e-zine available from GitLab, which I thought was kind of cool.
I'll drop that in chat for folks. They
want
to check it out.
So they cover a wide variety of topics, including security as well as AI, and other things as well.
Awesome.
This was announced, I think, about a week ago.
I saw this. What's going on here, John?
So
making a bring back plus and minus.
Yeah. So you know how the plus minus, so there's this plus minus sort of rendering that happens in VS when wanting to either expand or contract code, and it's been replaced by a chevron. And people will put together this campaign to say, let's bring it back. And so what this guy did, this is one of the engineers over at Microsoft. He's like, I could look at the VS code, but I'm going to actually, this is a blog post that tells a tale of how this guy went about finding out how to actually support this in VS, and then used IL Spy to try and figure out what the code actually is, and then tweaked it, and then did like it's basically it's almost like a whodunit sort of novel in a sense. So I love articles like this. I love articles where people talk about how they had a problem, how they went about solving that problem, and the steps along the way. It's kind of like a little mystery. So what this person did was they actually reverse engineered how some things worked within VS using IL Spy. He went through the process of creating a new VSX extension for Visual Studio. That's the extension capability of VS. And then basically made that V6 extension, tweaked the generated rendering for code, and then applied it and brought back the plus minus through this extension.
Even included the custom colors that get inserted in there.
That's right. Well, so it's from the .NET. It's from you wouldn't expect this from the folks over at Microsoft, because they were like, why don't you just look at the code and get it in? But this guy just felt compelled to I'm going to build it using it. He's doing it the way any of us would. Let's assume I don't have access to the source code. Let me fire up IL Spy. Let me go ahead and figure this out. Then what I'm going to do is figure out what API I have to call, and then away you go. So
all that to change this little square that is a plus
and
minus.
Ed, listen. If it means enough, it's worth it.
Arrow.
How dare you judge this man's efforts?
I'm gonna say this is actually a great thing to talk about, because it brings us into our next set of articles.
There you go.
So I added a bunch of design resources this week because I found a lot of them really interesting, and decided to group those together so we can talk about it. This is an interesting one called ThemeFinder.io.
Okay.
And what it does, it's got a cache of a bunch of different websites and their color profiles. So what you can do is scan through this. Let's say I'm building a new website. I want some inspiration for something that's got this aqua blue color in the color scheme. Now you can scroll down. There's some different websites that use that theme. or maybe I want something with a bright red to it. I can scroll over and get some inspiration with sites that have a nice bright red color palette to it. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That is cool.
Um, then I
Like a
saw
visual
another.
indexer. It's like a visual indexer of sites, so you can see practical examples of the color palette you've chosen. I like it.
Yeah. Then I saw this article that talks about elevation in dark UI. And if we have any designers watching, I think this is really fascinating because when you're trying to design a website that goes from light theme to dark theme, you kind of lose some different aspects of your design. And if you have like drop shadows in your design, uh, that doesn't really translate well to dark themes, right? Because a shadow on a dark surface is difficult. And I talked about this on a show a while back that if you're going to build a website, don't start with pure black if you're doing a dark theme. You want to have like more of a gray base color to work from. And then it talks about like your different levels of user interface and so on. So you get your color palettes, and when this all gets applied, this is where it really makes sense, John. Let's go look at the final result here. Here's the dark and the light version of the website, and this is where you can really see things kind of shine. So you have these product comparisons here. You can
Yes.
really see the different elevations in the color and how it brings those elements out and makes them stand out to the user more. And I think that's
Yes.
a really important thing to highlight when you maybe don't have a design team yourself. You're trying to implement these dark themes on your website, and it's difficult.
Yes.
And a lot of times people look at stuff and they're like, something's just not right about this. I'm not a designer, but I know this dark theme just doesn't look user friendly, right?
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
probably why. Like the color scheme's just not right. It's too pitch black, and there's no comfortable transition between the different elements that require focus.
The hardest thing about all this, and I've seen this myself, is the imagery they use. So shout out
Oh
to
yeah,
SVG. Shout out to SVG because they're clearly using it there, and they're applying style sheets to it. But
yeah.
yeah, if you got pictures, good luck. If you got screenshots, double good luck. Ain't gonna
Yeah.
happen. There's nothing you
Yeah,
can do.
SVGs are interesting because some of them you can recolor and some of them you cannot. Depends on how it's being used on the website. If it's referenced from a file or if it's inline SVG. I can't remember offhand which one you can recolor, which one you can't. I think the ones from file you cannot.
Yeah, that
The
would make
ones that
sense
are
because they would be on a
inline,
separate request and they probably wouldn't have styles associated with them. And
yeah.
inline is probably going to work better for you.
I think you can't override the file based um, variables that are
That would
values that
probably
are in
make
there.
sense. Yeah.
But
It's just because you're making it a separate request and there's too much context switching that the browser would have to do in order to apply those styles, I think.
I think
That's
it's
just my
the
guess.
priority as well.
Hmm.
So if you think about like CSS selectors,
A
um,
flash of unstyled element,
yeah, I
something
think
like
it has
that.
something to do with the priority of the CSS being applied there. But I'm kind of speaking out of turn on that. I can't remember, and it's been a long time since I've looked at it. But it is a thing. But this is a
Yes.
really nice
It
example,
is.
and
It is
they've
nice.
got these nice
Yes.
big screenshots of light and dark
I
mode
like
and
it.
why
I
you
like
should
it.
do this. And that brings me to a little bit of a self promotion type of a thing
Hey.
here. You know, I mean, I gotta bring up the progress new post that we just sent out over the holiday here, the Halloween holiday.
All right, come on,
So,
hit me. Hit
no
me. What do you
tricks,
got?
all treats,
All
peek of
treats.
our new AI theming tool. So, this is something that our engineering team worked on as a prototype of something that we're going to be adding to Theme Builder at some point. And what this does, it's better, we got all these examples in here, but it's better to see it live. So there
Yeah, let's
is
see
a
it live.
live link in here. So we could check this out live.
Oh, nice.
And let's do a new theme. What do we want to make a theme on, John? Do we
Well,
want
first of all,
like
what is the name? Just tell me the name here of this thing. This is
S-
Sakur.
SakurAI? I don't know where that comes
Okay,
from,
whatever. It's
but
called Sakura
yeah.
or something like that. Okay, good. All right. So
So
theme, let's go with a
what?
Christmas theme. A little bit
Oh,
of green,
Christmas
a little
theme,
bit of
holiday
red.
theme.
Yeah, it's
All
never
right.
too early to start doing. I'll just start playing the Mariah Carey in the background. Here we go.
Create a winter
All I want for
holiday
Christmas. Sorry.
theme that uses, let's say, red and green.
Yes. Please and thank you. This should be good. Add some mistletoe and some little. Can I do any animations? I guess not.
So we've got our holiday decor here. Let's go ahead and generate a theme. And these are all Kendo UI
This is
components
gonna be so ugly.
here. And it's live
Yep.
creating the theme. So we got
Yep.
the red and the green here.
This is gonna be so ugly.
it's generated it. Let's do a little add some.
Has it applied it?
It applied it. It did like a bright red here.
Oh, okay. Let's say
not much
dark
of
mode,
a-
because dark mode is going to be really contrasty. So let's say
let's try that again.
yeah, do a dark mode Christmas theme. Just try that. See if it picks it up. Let's try this. Come on, SakurAI. Let's see what you're up to. Let's see if you've got it.
Here.
Oh, there we go. I like it.
All right. There was some intelligence in here too, I think, where I saw it had a dark text and it went with a light text to counteract the dark theme there. But
you know what? That's pretty good, dude. That's pretty good.
Cool, right?
Yes.
But watch this. Let's go to the advanced mode
but
here.
Wait, there's more.
There's more. We can jack up the creativeness
the extreme.
to extreme.
There you go.
We can go super playful and happy. We've got like cyberpunk in here. Go ahead and generate that one. Let's see if it gives us anything more here. We got some more bold outlines to these guys here.
Let's readjust and let's say cyberpunk, Blade Runner themed, sort of thing.
Dark mode, Blade.
Blade Runner
Generate.
Here we go. I think it's gonna look the same, don't you think? Yeah.
I think we might need to give it a little more
zhuzh.
Yeah, like colors.
Let's add some fuchsia or pink, hot pink. Incorporate hot pink. Use hot pink.
There we go. Generate theme there.
Let's see if we can break this. Visually break it. What I mean, I don't mean like break it, but I mean like just
getting some weird.
I want to get the eye bleach out. I want to see something like really contrasty.
It's thinking. It's still thinking here. So
I think we broke it.
Oh, I think we did break it. Something went wrong. Let's try this one more time. Let's try from scratch here. Describe a theme.
80s cyberpunk.
Oh yeah.
Just try
80s.
that.
We gotta have neon. Give me neon.
Yes,
I want to see
I'm
neon
thinking
colors.
salt and pepper. I'm thinking Technicolor. I'm thinking.
Oh, there we go. We got it this time. That's
my
perfect.
eyes.
All right. It just needed the right prompt. Just needed the right prompt in there. We go advanced mode here and really make sure.
Whoa! All right.
We got the fun. We got the fun jacked up to 12. Let's see. It's still thinking. It's getting better though. I like the.
Okay. Yeah, getting a little bit contrasty. I like it. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's too
when
extreme.
when macular
so
degeneration hits me, I'll see this all. Don't worry.
It's so extreme. It's breaking things.
Yes.
All right. I got one more final thing to cover. I thought this was really, really cool. This was a video I stumbled upon. Let's see if my audio.
Jason day job lately.
Audio coming through to everybody.
Which led me to the misadventure known as the software job hunt in year 2024.
Uh-oh. Yeah, no,
it's done.
Thank you.
Don't know this developer.
So to prove some basic computer literacy and add yet another non-consequential project to my resume, I embarked on a quest to make a multiplayer browser game. By the way, the game is already available, source code up to the end of this video too, so check it out if you want.
So the gist of it is this person wants to add something to their resume to help them land a job as a junior software dev.
Okay.
So they go out and build what is that thing called? Isometric isometric turn-based strategy game from scratch with no frameworks. And they do all of this work like in HTML and Canvas and everything, creating this game from scratch, and then make a video about it.
Yeah,
that's really well documented and like well explained, and shows all the steps and how they did it and got to the final results. And I mean, like all the problem solving that went into like how to make things move with collision.
Yes.
And they're using Go on the back end with WebSockets to do the multiplayer part.
Yep.
Just fantastic video that's like 15 minutes long. And all of this was to create like a demo for their CV. I thought that was amazing.
I love it. Good for that person. That's awesome.
I went to their
tankops.xyz. Okay, there you go.
And CodeStan person. They've got 6,000 subscribers on one video. So I guess this went viral.
Yeah.
And there, like, I couldn't find really any other information, but an
I'm going to the site. I'm going to check this out. Tank Ops. Here we go. I love the name, Tank Ops.
Oh, there we go. He has a website. Let's see.
tankops.xyz is the website.
Yeah.
So turn-based game where you fight a tank battle with your opponent in alternating turns. All right, let's see this. Ooh, nice. I'm liking the 8-bit graphic motif here. It's good.
So hopefully this worked for this person and they landed a job.
Oh, yeah.
But like, I thought this was absolutely just genius. I mean, this is cool stuff. So,
nice.
You
should fire up tankops.xyz to take a look. It's kind of cool.
Let's take a look at it.
This is,
I mean, they created graphics and all sorts of stuff for this. We hit play here.
Yeah, you can just do play single, whatever. Yep.
Play single.
And you can zoom in with your mouse as well, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, he shows in the video how he did zoom and pan.
Yeah.
And like the zoom feature, there's actually different sprites for each, for several levels. So it zooms in a little bit and then it'll change sprites to give you better graphics.
So you click on a tank and you click and drag the arrow and it'll tell you where you can move to and all that.
Yeah, there's a whole fog of war.
Yeah. So you do all that and then you say finish turn and it will move everything.
There we go. They rotate, they turn.
Yep.
It's all sprite based.
Ooh.
It's really cool.
Oh no, there's a tank in mine. I gotta fight this guy.
Oh, you gotta do a live battle here. This just turned into like a Twitch gaming stream.
Oh, I know. Hey, that's what the kids are doing. Come on.
Oh, I lost that one. I thought this was really awesome. And it does like the full like WebSocket versus mode and everything, and all the code is up on GitHub. So TankOps XYZ is the site there. So make sure you check that one out.
Good for that person.
Fun to, I saw the video and I was like, this sounds interesting, but I've seen a lot of videos with that title. They're like, this is the thing I built. And then it's either like 12 hours long.
It's a to-do generator.
Or, it's hard to capture the viewer's attention on something that's technical like that. But like the video is well done. Like the video is well done. This person communicates what they do with their, their code very well. And then they can also code this. Like those are some useful talents to have. So I thought I'd share it. I like that kind of thing. All right. Take care, everybody.